The Scold's Bridle: How men in the Middle Ages were legally allowed to punish their wives. Men who were displeased by their wives' gossiping during the Middle Ages could publicly punish them with being forced to wear the Scold's Bridle for hours on end. Gossiping was just as rife as it is now, except this idle chit-chat over Sunday brunch could get you in trouble with your spouse. The Scold's Bridle encompassed numerous strips of iron that covered an iron muzzle. This would then be wrapped around a woman's face like a mask by her husband if he had heard that she had been engaging in idle gossip. A small piece of iron known as the bridle bit would be placed inside a woman's mouth and pressed upon the tongue to prevent her from speaking, and this sometimes had a spike on it which would puncture the tongue if speaking was even attempted. This was used as a punishment for bad behaviour by the men in society to keep their wives in line. Women of the lower class were branded as unfriendly, gossiping, nagging, scolding, and aggressive, and they were punished this way. The Scold Bridle was also called the Gossip's Bridle, and gossip was believed to be the devil's tool. This was a humiliating act to keep the women in line, and they would be paraded in public in this mask, as well as a leash that could be attached to the mask. Men would parade their wives on a walk of shame around the town, and the public would react with violence, spitting and threatening words. Some bridles were also fit with a bell that would draw more attention during the walk. The victim led through town was an entertaining spectacle and would suffer verbal abuse, spitting, and they often received beatings. Their heads would be shaken so hard that their teeth and jaws were sometimes broken, causing them to bleed and vomit. The scold part of Scold's Bridle comes from the term that was usually applied to a woman in derogative sense, who is seen to be nagging or continually unhappy. The bridle part comes from the headpiece worn by horses, used when their riders want more control over their movement. Christianity was the most followed religion at the time, and they believed that the body must feel pain to pay for their sins, in order to achieve true innocence as a result. This is how the scold was invented. It was a way to understand the weight of one's crimes against the church. Similar head cage contraptions had been used on slaves for hundreds of years, so the Scold Bridle was not a new phenomenon. During the medieval times, many instruments were made for torture, humiliation, and interrogation. These cruel tortures were socially acceptable, as pain could determine one's innocence or guilt. By the end of the 16th century, the Scold's Bridle had begun to see a decrease in popularity. Perhaps women gossiped less, or the men had moved on to newer punishments for their sins. The Scold Bridle was replaced by the more exciting stocks, and people were forced to stand in public for hours as a new form of public humiliation. The Scold Bridle was an important deterrent for authorities to ensure that women did not rise up against them through rioting, challenging priests, or defying their husbands, and women were second-class citizens and were treated as such. Please comment, like and subscribe if you wish for more stories, and leave your suggestions below and I will endeavour to cover them.